Hey everybody, KMO here on day 9 of my 10-day fast. And I feel better today than I have at any other time during the fast. I don't know what to say. Maybe it takes a solid week, to really get into the groove of it, but I feel fine today. I feel alert, I have a clear head, no back pain anymore. That was pretty early on in the fast, but it's completely gone now. It's got a little skin stuff going on still. That's typical during a fast. Anyway, today I am going to read a few comments. Really, there have only been a few comments. I'm going to read all of them on my video from yesterday about how YouTube took down my, what is it? I can't remember the guy's name. But anyway, the shooter in Christchurch, New Zealand, the guy who shot up the mosque. He has a manifesto. I read it. I shared some of the content of that manifesto, not in an approving way, but I guess I didn't disapprove of it hard enough. And YouTube basically sent me a notification saying that I had violated their community standards and that video had been removed. They didn't say how I had violated the standards. They didn't say which standards I had violated. So that is actually a critical and a very important piece of their strategy, is instant punishment for an unspecified crime. What does that do? If I don't know which line I crossed or how I crossed it, then I can't move right up to the line and just skirt the line and be right at the edge of what's acceptable. I don't know where the line is. So, what am I supposed to do? Well, from YouTube's perspective, I am supposed to aim toward the middle of the herd. Go and basically talk about the things and talk in the way that nobody ever gets in trouble for. Now, I'm not a shape-shifting reptilian overlord believer, but I do take in some David Icke from time to time, and one great concept I got from him is the idea of a no-hassle zone. That everybody, they think about things, they entertain thoughts, they have beliefs or opinions that are not acceptable to the public at large. If you say things if you say things outside of the no hassle zone, if you venture too far out of the anodyne middle of the herd, then people are going to start giving you shit. And the best way to avoid getting that shit is not to change your mind, but to just recognize what's in the hassle zone and what's in the no hassle zone, and just steer for the no hassle zone. And that is the response that YouTube is looking to engender when they punish a video creator but don't tell them what they did that was objectionable. They're just looking to drive people either to the center of the herd or out. Okay, I'll come back to that after I read the feedback. First, a marvelous quote. I've used this in other videos. I shared it with Colin, but it's always worth revisiting. No one understood better than Stalin that the true object of propaganda is neither to convince nor even persuade, but to produce a uniform pattern of public utterance in which the first trace of unorthodox thought immediately reveals itself as a jarring dissonance. You don't expect everybody to believe the propaganda that they spout. You don't expect everybody to really banish all unorthodox thoughts from their mind, but as long as you control the public discourse, when somebody says something which a lot of people think and feel and resonate with but don't dare say, well, that immediately, it's like a smoke signal. It's like a flare. It's like, oh, unorthodox thought over there. Look at that guy. We got to move. So, feedback. Guy that comments posted, "That sucks. Screw whoever flagged. And screw YouTube for obviously not reviewing something, most certainly not violating guidelines. Was it the I read manifesto vid? Yes, it was. I would be tempted to censor, and in a way I did by not viewing the video, but there is no reason to censor and also not to mention free speech." Let me just say that not viewing a video isn't censorship. You can't view all videos. You can only view a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the total things available for you to watch on YouTube. Far more than 24 hours of video gets uploaded to YouTube every day. Hundreds of times that, maybe thousands. There's no way you can watch it all. So, just not watching something, not prioritizing it highly enough to spend your time on it is not censorship. What YouTube did removing a video without adequately explaining why is worse than censorship. I mean, the author of the quote that I read a couple of minutes ago, he had no idea of the tools for behavioral and cognitive control that would emerge, from information technology, networking technology, and, certainly even back in the 90s, when people were talking about the future of the internet, nobody was talking about something like Facebook. Nobody was talking about being able to use people's desire for social approval and the neurological rewards that they get for receiving tokens of status, like likes and hearts and subscriptions and comments and shares and all that good stuff. I've been following what you might call futurism for, 30 years. It's just always been a topic of great interest to me. And probably more than 30 years, since my teens, I would say, like 35 years probably. Nobody has ever really been all that great at predicting where technology was going to go, what it was going to do. Maybe you've got some examples, counter examples, and if you have them, great, post them in the comments. But like Marshall McLuhan, Marshall McLuhan is held up as this great prophet, this great seer into the future and how things would be changing, in response to cultural change and technological change. But if you go back and read his books, like Future Shock or The Third Wave, they're not that impressive in their predictive power. They're just not. David Brin, if you go to his blog, you can find some blog posts by him where he's talking about his hits and misses in terms of predictions. And, even his hits, if you go back and you read his novels, like, Earth is the one that comes to mind, is the most obvious cauldron for, cooking up some predictions about where the future is going. Earth takes place about now, and his predicted vision of what the internet would be about this time, and this was like late 80s, early 90s when he wrote the book, it's in flavor, in tone, it's not even close. If you comb through it, you can find some things to say, yeah, we're kind of like that, yeah, that kind of applies, but it's not a very good prediction. Again, if you have counterexamples of somebody, 20, 30 years ago predicting the level of behavioral control and the style of behavioral control exercised under the guise of connecting people, post them in the comments. So this is getting longer than I intended. I might have to break this up into a couple different videos. So let me push on with the responses. Egon Aram wrote, in response to people's lives being ruined, the New Zealand government has decided to ruin young lives by persecuting people for sharing the video or manifesto. Bunch of scumbags. Well, I don't know what the New Zealand government is doing to New Zealand citizens in terms of circulating the manifesto, but what YouTube did to me is not persecution. I mean, that's a big word, and I would save that for a big circumstance. This really cost me nothing, and this, leads me into the topic that I want to explore. But first, one more comment. Infinitely Blank wrote, "Sorry to hear that your video got deleted, KMO, but this stuff always leaves me wondering what content review mechanisms are in place. It's clear nothing was actually wrong with your initial video. These things are getting removed with such broad brushstrokes that I feel like it must be a dumb algorithm that takes our videos, like yours, as collateral damage." Well, my video got reviewed because a viewer, a YouTube user, flagged it as being inappropriate or violating their standards. And they claim that they engaged in some sort of review process. I seriously doubt anybody, any human employee at Google actually watched the video and reviewed the content. If you look at the cover art for it, it's got the image of the manifesto cover right there in the cover art. So maybe they just saw that and said, oh, white nationalist, white supremacist, done, out. I don't know. I have no idea. And, that is part of the behavioral control strategy, is to not let you know what you did. That's why, one of the foundations of English common law, which shaped the development of law around the world, is that you have to know what the charges against you are, and you have to know who has made the charges. In the digital landscape, in the social media landscape, companies like Google, which owns Facebook or which owns YouTube, they're not answerable to the Constitution. They're not a branch of the government. They don't have to respect your freedom of speech, your freedom of individuality, your freedom of self-expression. They're not obliged to behave that way. And so, we choose to use these platforms. Now, the argument is that, since these platforms are so ubiquitous, they have so much penetration, basically excluding somebody or excluding certain views from YouTube or Facebook or Twitter is basically exercising censorship. You're basically drawing a line through the ideological spectrum and saying, nothing to the right of this line may be spoken, only things to the left of this line will be spoken. And, libertarians will say that's absolutely fine because Google's not the government. But, Google has power over our lives that the government doesn't have. So I'm thinking something should be done to basically bind the tech companies to the same level of accountability that government agencies, are held to or could be held to. Often they're not. All right. So the immediate effect of YouTube banning my video was not to make me, go back through my other videos. And their message to me told me that I should go and review all my past videos. Come on, I do one a day, at least one a day. I'm going to go and review all of them, looking for content that I thought was fine at the time, and they haven't banned, so they think it's fine at the time, but they tell me, with your new consciousness, with your new sensitivity, you should go back and review all your old material and take down the stuff. You should proactively censor yourself rather than make us do it. So what was the immediate effect of their taking my video down? I had opened a BitChute account months ago, but I never uploaded anything to it. Yesterday, I uploaded my first video to BitChute. From now on, I'm going to be uploading all of my videos to BitChute. I'll upload them to YouTube as well, but there's going to be a backup. I'm going to have my archive over in the free speech zone. So what is the effect to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter if the people that they try to herd back into the no hassle zone, but who are resistant, who are defiant, if they go elsewhere, if they go over to Gab, if they go over to Minds.com or MeWe or, BitChute, what is the effect? Well, the immediate effect for the companies looking to control the mentality and the behavior, the online behavior of their users is that it gets easier because the malcontents, the skeptics, the resistant people, they have self-segregated. They have removed themselves from your population. And so far, the numbers are probably so small that it's not affecting anybody's bottom line so much. But what it's doing is it's changing the character of the people who stay. As more skeptics and malcontents and free speech fundamentalists leave the mainstream tech social media platforms, well, the people who remain there are the more easily persuaded, the more easily corralled, the more easily intimidated. And here's what happens. In the short term, that's good for the tech platforms. But in the long term, if you want to get better at behavior modification, you need some resistant types to work on. If everybody in your population is already as docile as a lamb, then you're not going to really step up your game very well. It's like playing chess against, novices or kids only, and never playing against an opponent who is as skilled as you are. Your game will degrade. If you can't play with somebody who's at, near your skill level, just below, just above, you're not going to get any better, and in fact, you will get worse. Also, the emergence of things like BitChute and Minds.com and Gab, this is creating redundancy, but another word for redundancy is resilience. As you take away redundant elements in a system, you make the system more fragile. If there isn't an alternative for any particular piece and that piece breaks, then there's lasting damage. There is significant interruption to the functioning of the system. In the long term, what the tech giants are doing, what the big social media platforms are doing in trying to monitor our every move, our every utterance, our every interaction with anybody else, and then to punish us for the ones they don't like, but without telling us exactly what it is they're punishing us for, well, they're creating a very pliable population within their control, driving out the resistant elements, but weakening themselves in the process. And hey, I'm going to take that as a win. That's good news. All right, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Stay well.